Hello again, friends. This is Jacob, Mad Crazy Reviews, back with another director spotlight. Today we're going to be talking about Darren Aronofsky, a guy who's super interesting and has done some really great work and some really bad work. He's kind of all over the map when you look at his career so far. A little bit of housekeeping here at the top. Have to apologize if you're looking forward to seeing my gorgeous mug. I'm again on a bit of a time crunch here, trying to squeeze this recording in between some other appointments and obligations, so just the audio today, no video portion. I'll still put the recording on YouTube, but it'll be accompanied by some screenshots, not really any live video. So let's dive right in. Darren Aronofsky has been busy since the late 90s. He is graduate of the American Film Academy, has a Master in Fine Arts from there. So some pretty prestigious credentials as far as filmmakers go. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the films real quick and then give some overall thoughts at the end because I'm going to try and release this literally tomorrow. So, not much turnaround time, so I got to try to keep the editing to a minimum. So, chronologically, he's made Pi, Requiem for a Dream, The Fountain, The Wrestler, Black Swan, Noah, Mother, and The Whale. Pi got a lot of attention and even won him a couple of awards. I think it's okay. It's definitely very interesting and it gives you quite a wild ride through like numerology as a mathematician tries to crack pi. He's convinced that if he can figure out all the digits of pi, that he'll unlock some mystery of the universe, essentially, and that he'll have power over the financial system and he'll understand the patterns underlying everyday life. It's a kind of silly concept if you actually like think about it, but the experience is really interesting. He's made a very paranoid kind of thriller out of mathematics and numerology, which, not too many people can make that claim, so good for him. Probably his most famous film, at least among anyone who's taking film seriously, is Requiem for a Dream. Probably the most extreme anti-drug film you could possibly imagine. It's very, very interesting, very visually aggressive, almost to a fault, but the performances in it really make it stand out, especially Ellen Burstyn, but really the whole cast is fantastic, turning in some great, great work. They elevate it from like simple TV melodrama to full-on tragedy. Like it's heartbreaking what happens to these people. Now, I'll grant you, they're not off the hook because a lot of it is of their own making and they kind of bring these things upon themselves. But still, it's really sad to see it unwind. The Fountain, I remember seeing in film school, and it was the first film from Aronofsky in a couple of years, and so people were really excited because at that time a lot of people were still buzzing off of the high of Requiem for a Dream and wanted to see what he would do with a story of like immortality and reincarnation and all this stuff. Overall, again, kind of silly. The script is actually pretty bad at a lot of points, but visually, oh my God, it's stunning, just gorgeous. The way he mixes visual effects, practical effects, photography, cinematography, the whole thing is just gorgeous to look at. I would recommend just turning off the sound because, again, the script is pretty corny and pretty bad, but just a visual masterpiece. The Wrestler kind of helped him break into the mainstream as much as he's been into the mainstream. Again, really strong performances, especially Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke turns in a lifetime performance. But unfortunately, again, kind of a weak script. And if you just like look at it now, you can see this feels like Oscar bait. It's shot on 16 millimeter. It looks like maybe bleach bypass cinematography as well, or at least, sorry, I shouldn't say cinematography, bleach bypass like processing. It's kind of a cringy, quote, gritty indie drama for the most part, albeit with a great central performance. So kind of a mixed bag there. Let's see where we at. Black Swan, again, a great central performance. This is the film where I kind of realized, With all of his gritty indie dramas and all of his like credentials in the film world, Aronofsky seems to really want to make horror movies because Black Swan, psychological horror, a lot of things that happen in Requiem for a Dream are horrific of a street level nature. The Fountain has a lot of horrific imagery. Try is even a horror film of sorts. It's a thriller, but some disturbing, graphic, horrific elements as well. Anyway, Black Swan, he goes full horror with famously Natalie Portman descending into madness. It's really cool to watch. I don't think it quite holds up, 10, 11 years later. It still has that great performance from Natalie Portman, and there's some really cool stuff. The problem is that it's every major beat is underscored by really predictable horror movie tropes. Like if someone flashes in a mirror, you'll have that famous kind of dagger sound from a violin. If something ominous is going on, you'll have a deep rumble in the bass on the soundtrack. Like things that are signaling to the audience horror movie stuff, which is fine. It just makes it makes the beats of the movie pretty predictable. After that, what do we got? Noah, I think. Noah is kind of charming in a weird way. I have a lot of respect for wanting to take the most famous flood narrative ever and then turning it into kind of a mid 50s Spartacus sword and sandal epic, essentially. I think the problem and the controversy around the film just stems from people taking the Bible literally instead of looking at it as a collection of stories and myths to be looked at metaphorically. This film also introduced me to the idea of rabbinical midrash, something I hadn't heard of before because I'm not Jewish. And when you look at it in that context, it's really cool take on the material because it's something unlike anything you've ever really seen with a Bible story, and it helps ground it in myth, but also takes the myth completely seriously. Now, admittedly, that does lead to some silly moments for sure, but visually very interesting. He treats the Watchers, this class of angels, as though they're literally on the ground helping, and they're like these giant rock monster things. And then when they break free of the rock, they're just these beings of light that ascend into the heavens. And then you have, what's his name? Ray Winstone, I think, playing Tubal Cain, I believe, is who he's playing, but aligns himself against Noah and essentially trying to start a war. The whole thing, again, if you look at it from a plot perspective, gets pretty silly. But if you think about it as myth and as trying to interrogate a myth, I think that helps a lot. And visually, it's very interesting. Next up is Mother, which is my favorite of anything he's done. I really have a lot of respect for Requiem for a Dream and for Pi. And like I said, I like Noah probably more than most people. Black Swan's really interesting. But if you're going to pick one film from Aronofsky, I think Mother is where it's at. Again, centered on another strong lead performance, this time from Jennifer Lawrence. And it's just got so much going on. It's so cool. And again, it's another biblical allegory. You have Mother, who seems to be standing in for Mother Nature, but then you have Javier Bardem, who seems to be standing in for the Christian, Judeo-Christian God. You have Adam and Eve show up, you have Cain and Abel show up, and then it seems to just descend into pure chaos. My read on the film is that Aronofsky's trying to do essentially all of existence from like creation to apocalypse and Armageddon in like a 2 hour whatever span. I forget how long the movie is. But it gets wild, it gets crazy, and he said at one point that that's why he put an exclamation mark in the title of the movie because it ends on an exclamation mark. It gets so just nuts at the end. I love it. And then from Mother, we have The Whale, which is only a couple years old at this point. I think it was 2023, 2022. I really don't like this movie. Sorry, Darren. It's just so overwritten. Now, again, a fantastic performance from Brendan Fraser, a guy who was like a really charismatic, charming, handsome leading man in the early 2000s. Everyone loves The Mummy, and he kind of, I think, worked against himself, being a little eccentric and silly on set, it sounds like. But, we're in the Brendan Fraser Renaissance. He's making a comeback. This solidified him as still a strong actor. But the script on this, my goodness, I think it originated as a play, and it really feels like it. It's all in one location, basically, and it's one of the worst kind of dramatic plays I can imagine, where people walk around speaking their emotions, speaking their thoughts. It's almost painful at times how overwritten this script is. Aronofsky, to his credit, makes it as interesting as he can visually. He's working in a different aspect ratio so that you have essentially bars on the sides of the screen. So it feels very claustrophobic. His world feels very small, even though he is huge. But on a foundational level, again, on a script level, this isn't working for me. It doesn't do much for me. Anyway, so those are the movies. I know I kind of hit on some things throughout those recaps. Aronofsky has had a really interesting trajectory. Almost makes me think of Guy Ritchie, who we talked about months ago, in the sense that he started out really aggressive and unique and challenging himself and the viewer, and seems to have over time become a bit more maybe complacent or just less interested in challenging those things. Now, I realize Mother came out before The Whale, so it's still a pretty recent film. I think it was 2017, if I remember correct, or somewhere there, 2019 maybe. But otherwise, you have Noah, which is a fairly standard kind of, again, sword and sandal epic. It just happens to be about a Bible story. Then you have The Whale, which is kind of painful, cliched indie drama. Even The Wrestler was pretty standard indie drama, just happened to be about a world we don't spend a lot of time in, dramatically or cinematically. But again, he's gotten a little less distinct with each film. He's becoming a bit more standard. I don't know what word to use, but he's relying on a lot more cliches and things than he probably did at the start of his career. Now, that said, we are in August of 2025. He's just had a new film come out, Caught Stealing, starring Austin Butler, which from the trailers at least looks to be kind of a action comedy thriller hybrid. Not sure. I'm interested. I am concerned coming off of The Whale and what in my mind is a decline to his career, that this again might be a bit more stereotypical of a film. But he's made so many interesting choices. And the thing I respect about Aronofsky is he really takes big swings and, that results in a lot of big misses. But when he connects, he really gives you something interesting and unlike anything anyone else has been up to or has done recently or has ever done, depending on the film. So really interested to check that out. And then just to circle back on the whole horror movie thing, I didn't realize this, but apparently he is attached or was attached at one point to do a remake adaptation of the book Cujo, which I could only imagine would be such a wild trip because I read that book last year, I think, 2024, and loved it. It was one of the best Stephen King books I've read, surprisingly dramatic in addition to being horrific. But just the thought of Aronofsky, who loves to put you in the perspective of his characters, often literally strapping a camera onto them, and then making a full-on crazy horror movie about a dog. I could just imagine, the camera strapped to the dog or the camera from the dog's perspective, and then you have the whole claustrophobia of the person trapped in the car for hours and hours. I think it could be something really great if it's true. Who knows how these things go? Sometimes negotiations fall through, sometimes he changes his mind, but I would really look forward to seeing what that would be like if he does it. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. This is Jacob, Mad Crazy Reviews. We've been talking about Darren Aronofsky. Again, if we want to just do a ranking of the films, I would say number one is Mother, number two, Requiem for a Dream, number three, Black Swan, number four, Noah, number five, Pi, number six, The Fountain, number seven, The Wrestler, number eight, The Whale. Only eight films. This is a bit longer than I anticipated of a recording, so apologies for that. I'll try and see Caught Stealing at some point and then put up a written review, so check that out, Instagram, Substack. And let's see what else here. I've also got original videos on YouTube and TikTok. And obviously, you're listening here on Spotify, so many recordings on Spotify, usually about books, but we also talk about filmmakers and movies from time to time. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. Mad Crazy Reviews. Check it out. All one word, give it a search. And thanks for stopping by.